We'll do that. Yeah. All right. Well, hi, I am Ben Songraf, and I am happy to be the facilitator tonight. So my other job, when I don't just kind of, do this stuff on the side, I'm lead regional ed tech coordinator for the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. So I'm down in Dixon, Illinois, about an hour and a half west of Chicago. And yeah, there you guys are, nice and close now. What my job is, I work with educators on bringing technology into classrooms and schools, on keeping kids safe and making sure that they're doing all the right stuff when it comes to technology. So our focus, and when Kelsey reached out about this topic, it's been very much in line with a lot of things that we've been kind of working with districts on in Illinois. And it's something that I find when I talk to school teachers about it, I think the parents in the room almost perk up more as parents than they do as educators, which is fine because they get to wear both hats. So our focus tonight, and I'm a parent too, so I have a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old that I'm wearing headphones, so hopefully the sound quality is okay because the 1-year-old will be screaming at some point in this, and he already has been multiple times. So, but trying to make sure that our children are doing stuff that's good and safe, and we know what they're doing online. So I have, we'll go ahead and share my screen now. And I'd love for you guys at any point to ask questions. If something comes up and you want to, just feel free, like unmute, or you guys are already unmuted, but like just shout it out, stop me, ask questions, that type of stuff. We want to answer as many as I can. Some of the stuff too, I will say, like, we want to focus on keeping kids safe, but also I think this is just good stuff for adults too. It's trends across the board. So we're just working in this whole digital world safely is kind of what I want out of tonight. Are there any specific things that you two are interested in learning about before we get going that I can kind of like make sure I'm part of, or I can kind of ad lib onto that at all?
Anything in particular? I think just to know where I'm coming from, I am a mom of a 12-year-old. No way. And navigating technology and safety has just been a real source of concern for many years, but especially lately. She has a phone, tried to put like the parental locks on, and I'm just really interested in learning more about what you have to say about that.
Cool. Yeah, and I think there's a premise to that too of, we can do all we can do, and even when it's it's kind of like anything with as a parent, like you can tell them as much as you want, but ultimately sometimes they have to learn a little bit too. But you don't want them. You want to at least it's the foundation of these things, right? Like teach them a little bit. One of the things that I want to focus on tonight, and hopefully it comes when we talk about digital citizenship and keeping kids safe online, one of the things that kind of framework your brain for tonight, and also then when you talk to other people, you talk to your kids about, is that we focus a lot on the don'ts in digital safety, like don't do that. Don't do this thing. But as parents, yeah, go ahead.
You're kind of glitching a little bit. I don't know why.
Let me, is it just my audio or is my picture glitching as well?
It's your audio.
Okay, it might be my
We're missing words every once in a while.
Well, that's not good. Let's stop that. Let me take my headset out and my knockoff Amazon headset, and we will attempt to buy them too cheap to purchase regular AirPods.
All right, now we're back to this. Can you guys hear me okay now?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Okay, sorry about that. My
No problem.
cheap Amazon AirPods are not working. So anyways, as I was saying, one of the things that we focus on when we want to have this message with kids is more so on not on the don'ts, because as parents, like when you say don't touch that, like they're going to be like, okay, and then you turn your back and they touch it. And so you keep saying don't, and they start tuning out don't. So a lot of times it's like reshifting it to the do's, and then also like educating them on some of the stuff I'm going to talk about tonight, on what the premise is. It's like anything, like people can tell me don't do that, but if I personally don't understand the reason not to do that, I'm probably going to do it anyways. Or like I might do it anyways. Somebody's like, you got to be careful when you do that. I'd be like, whatever. Like I can actually show you that right now. This is my 3D. I have a 3D printer right next to me. This is the 3D printing sheet. I bought the wrong filament for this. And one of my buddies who's really good with 3D printing says you have to be careful when you print in what's called PTG filament. And I was like, I'm a smart guy. I'll figure it out. I read a little thing on the internet. I was like, I'm just going to print. Well, I printed and I can't get that off, which is not good. And I told him when he's like, I can walk you through it when I'm back at work on Monday. And I was like, I'll just figure it out. I'll be fine. It's not really fine. It's kind of not great right now. And I've got to really figure this out. He has walked me through some ways to get this off, but I'm a little concerned because I didn't listen to the don't. I just did it. So that's what I think too. Like if you educate your kids on some of this stuff too. So that's where we're coming from tonight. And again, if you guys have questions, please ask and we'll go from there. So again, there's my slides, but I already introduced myself. So we won't work with that. And then I kind of already did some of this, but this is where we're going to focus a lot on. And Melissa, having a 12-year-old, you're at a very interesting time with like social media stuff, right? Like they're very exposed to it. They probably want it. Do they have a social media account yet? Which one?
Snapchat for sure. Some of the things I think I don't know.
Yeah. It's amazing
Yeah.
when you can just say you're 13 and you're really not. Like,
Yeah.
it's just...
And I also want to say, since we're recording this, we might not want to make it so personal.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. That's fair. Well, because I think some of the stuff too is like understanding how some of the platforms work. I don't think we'll get that detailed and minute just because of time constraints, but I do want to say that like having that, background of how some of the apps work can be helpful. And then that's stuff we can research on our own. So we're going to talk about some social media stuff. We're going to talk about the big thing here with digital footprint, and having a digital footprint. Some people call it a digital tail, but that's a big thing to educate students about and kids about. We're going to talk about influencing the good in the world with social media, because that's kind of that, not focusing on the don'ts, but focusing on the do's, how to be safe. And then also going to do some media literacy stuff too. And in between, we're going to work in some like monitoring apps, some good practices for iPhones and Android phones, what you can look for in those things. So that's kind of our outline. We'll try to get to as much of it as possible in the next 45 minutes as we can. So this is an interesting question, I think, that you can start off with. So when we talk to students, and I talk to my son about this too, like I always like to just ask them very generally, like, what is your favorite thing to do on the internet? I actually did this presentation to a group of girls ranging from 6 to 10. And I asked them, like, what's your favorite thing to do on the internet? And you should be 13 to agree to the terms of service for a lot of social media accounts. What I found was that their favorite thing to do on the internet was YouTube Shorts. And YouTube Shorts is quite a clever way to get around this premise of having to be 13 to agree to social media accounts, because you don't need an account to view YouTube Shorts, because you can just get on YouTube and view videos. And what YouTube Shorts is essentially TikTok, but it's YouTube's version. And so people post short videos that are about 60 seconds or less to YouTube, and they go in a scrolling style, just like TikTok videos do, just like Instagram Reels do. And I found it interesting that that's what this group of girls said their favorite thing to do was. And it was almost to a girl. Like everyone was like, YouTube Shorts, YouTube Shorts, YouTube Shorts. And to that, it's kind of, a bit scary, because you don't have to have an account to view those things. So they don't have to sign in and they don't have to create an account. Like they can just do it. So I think that's a good question to ask. Like when you're talking to your kids, like, what is your favorite thing to do? You can do that casually. Like I know if I asked my 6-year-old right now, I'd be like, watch YouTube, which I already know that answer. He's not into the shorts yet. He hasn't found that yet, but just watch YouTube videos. But then that allowed me to then view his history. Like I could go into YouTube, see what videos he's been watching. I can more limit like what he's watching. I said, all right, we're switching over to YouTube Kids, not regular YouTube. So I think this is just a very interesting question to lead with. You don't have to answer it right now, but it is something you can talk to your kids about and just bring it up, just, casually, like, hey, what's your favorite thing to do? And then that can help guide you a little bit. So like if your son or your daughter does have, Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or TikTok, like, it helps kind of guide the premise there a little bit. So when we do talk about social media, one of the things that we want to bring up with students is being a good digital, or with kids, is being a good digital citizen. And that means, like, we talk about citizenship a lot in schools, like when they get older, and even like in grade school when we were saying the Pledge of Allegiance before the school day starts. Like, we're talking about citizenship from a patriotic standpoint. You should do these things to be a good person in society. And one of the things we want to embark on our kids is that it's important to do that same type of thing online. So when we do log on, we are a good digital citizen, and that we're using technology responsibly to do these three things: learn, create, and participate. And the first one, I think, is the biggest one there with learn, because that's what a lot of our kids are doing online, is they're learning things. And sometimes they be learning the right things, and sometimes they can be learning the wrong things. And so we want to be really forthright with that, of saying like, hey, you want to make sure we're doing the right stuff here. And you can also create things. You can make TikToks, you can make Snapchat stories, you can make Instagram reels, you can make Instagram posts, but you want to be doing it responsibly. You want to be doing stuff. And I think one of the things that we kind of come back to here, and that the message that I always try to get across to kids when I talk to them about this, to teachers when I talk to them about this, to other adults, is that it's all about being a good human. Like, I think that's first and foremost. Like, if it's good, if you think it's good and it makes you feel good, then you should do it. You have no reservations about it. Then you're contributing to a positive society. And I think these are just like very basic pillars, but they're important to talk to kids about, because I don't think sometimes they understand like what that comment means. When you do fire something off via text, like, what does that mean? And these are just very basic things to go through with them. But I find when I talk to students about this, it is kind of a bit eye-opening, especially depending on their age. When they're littler or they're older in high school, some of the high school kids might roll their eyes at me when I say it, but it's important at the same time of just like making sure these things all fall into the category of be a good human. Like, just be a good person, spread positivity, don't be mean, set a good example. Other people are watching you, other people can see you. Identify positive role models to follow on social media. That's a big one, because I think in the don't culture that sometimes we live in, of don't do that, we were going to like take social media away from them, which only makes them want to have it more. But if we can encourage kids to follow good people online that are doing good things online, then they see how social media is being used for good. One of the things one of the channels that's interesting to me is the Mr. Beast channel on YouTube, because he makes an awful lot of money. He's the highest paid YouTuber on the internet. And he does a lot of interesting kind of weird things to people. Like, he does a lot of social experiments, and they're unique, but he's always got a good message behind it, or he's always giving them an opportunity to make money or to buy their way out of things or to do stuff. And then ultimately he gives it away, and he gives away a lot of money. And so it's a bit of a quirk with him, I think, where it's like, he is a good role model, I think, because he is giving all of his money away. He does some interesting things along the way, though. And I think it's important to have conversation with kids about that. Like, is what he's a good role model because he's giving his money away, but like, think of what he's doing to people to earn it. I don't know, but it's a game show too. So it is what it is. But then you can find other like really bad role models online that are kind of moonlighting as good role models. So I think it's important to have those conversations with your kids and say, who are your role models online? Who do you like to follow? Who are your content creators that you talk to or that you engage with, that you follow their stuff? And you can look them up. Like, I've blocked a couple of YouTube accounts, or I guess not really blocked, but just like as soon as I see them come up that my son watches, it's like, I try to hide their videos. I delete them from my history on my YouTube, like trying to get them out of the algorithm in there. And then this is another one too. The biggest one that could be the hardest one, and I know it's really hard for me, is taking breaks from social media to spend time offline. Like, I think that's really important. And there's studies that have shown, to nobody's surprise, that it's important to do that, and it's really healthy for kids. So that's where there's a screen time debate for sure. I think I fall on the side of letting kids be on screens a lot, because I think that's the society that we're living in and need to know how to navigate effectively. But taking a break to have actual conversation about this stuff, I think is really important. So spreading positivity, using the internet for good, I think is really important conversation to have with your kiddos. then this is the other side of that coin, is what happens when somebody is being mean or hurtful online. Like, what should you encourage your son or daughter to do? What should you encourage those kids to do in that situation? And I think it's important to press this on them. So like, this is one to like, even just jot down, like the stop sign. It's very generic. It's almost a bit cliche. But I think it's really important to like, I love this acronym. Like I found it when I was researching another presentation. And I thought this was a good way to put it to kids, because it's one thing to say like, hey, just don't engage with that person anymore. Like, yeah, well, that's easy for us to say, but I understand too, it's hard for me sometimes to disengage. Like I was telling before, I have a group chat that's going absolutely bonkers right now with a bunch of pitch coaches that are kind of being mean to each other about whether or not we cancel the game tonight. And it's not great for me, but I find myself unable to put the phone down. Like I'm reading this kind of sort of like enjoying this chaos that's happening, when really what I should do is stop, like, like step away from it. Like, don't be a part of it. But then also I like this for our kids too, like step away, tell an adult, make sure you're going to okay sites, or you okay sites that you're going to with somebody who's a trusted adult. And then this is a big one too, like pause and think. Like that's one I think that we really got to work with kids on, is pause and think online. Adults are so guilty of this. Like I know that group chat that I'm in referencing right now is going crazy, and people are not stopping to think about what they're typing into that chat. And that's the thing, like pause, let it simmer, and then respond. Like don't respond right away. I know one of my administrators that I worked with when I was teaching had a 24-hour rule. He told us as teachers, if you get an inflammatory email from a parent that's angry or attacking or something like that, he's like, you have my blessing to wait 24 hours before you respond to that person. And I don't want you to just fire it off because you feel like you want, I'm the one over top of your shoulder saying, engage with parents, engage with parents, engage with parents. But I think that's really important to like pause, wait, and then send. So this stop method, I think, is really important to talk to kids about, especially these first two. Step away, tell an adult. When you see something you shouldn't see, like, how does it make you feel? Ask like those types of questions. So I think those are a couple of really important things about being positive, but then also what happens, because kids are going to incorporate mean or encounter mean things online. It just happens. Do either one of you guys have any questions or anything about any of that stuff? All right, good deal. So the digital footprint, this is one to talk to kids about, and also adults, because I don't think adults fully understand how the internet works. I don't even fully understand how the big wide world of the internet works, but I understand it to a point that I'm very comfortable in speaking to it. But when we leave this footprint online, it's a lot like when we leave footprints, in the real world, and you see fossilized footprints everywhere. We're finding footprints of indigenous people from 13, 15, 20, 200,000 years ago now that are changing the way we view ancient history. And unfortunately, our digital footprint is just like that. And so when we talk to kids, we put it in the framework of fossils. Like, we know that dinosaurs existed in this part of this area of the world because we've seen fossilized footprints of them, and it lasted. So that footprint stayed. We know they lived here. When you go online, you leave a trail. You leave a footprint that a lot of people can see, that I can see as an adult, as a parent of you. I can go in and find things that you did, and it can last for a long time or last to a point where it's unable to be gotten rid of, like a fossilized footprint. So a lot of the stuff I'm framing for you to bring back to have those conversations with your children. But that fossilized footprint is a really good example to do, because this digital footprint that we're talking about is a record of what we do online. So it's everything we visit, it's everything we post, it's everything that we like on other people's posts, it's everything we comment on. And oftentimes it's even how long we stop and engage with a video that we might not even click on. Everything we do online is being recorded in some sort of data. And this isn't just for 13-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 8-year-old, 6-year-old kids. It's adults. We all create this footprint. And this allows companies to then market to us. And it also allows companies or schools or other adults to find out the stuff that we're doing and then use that potentially against us, or to learn things about us that's creepy and not cool. And it all comes from this digital footprint. And that's the thing that I think kids don't quite gather. And one of the things that I try to talk to my son, and we're going to get into the algorithm in a little bit, but even at 6, he'll tell me like, Dad, I really like these videos from this particular YouTube creator. And I'll say, all right, buddy, like, yeah, I know you like them. He's like, well, I want more of them. And I have to explain to him, well, if you want more of those, the way you get them is you keep clicking on them, because the more you click on them, the more YouTube learns that you like those, and then YouTube will give you more of those videos, because YouTube is collecting a data set on you. I didn't say that to him, but that's the basic principle I lay out to my 6-year-old. Like, if you like those, click on them. And I want to instill that in him at 6, that like, if I click, I get more. And then hopefully as he ages and we continue to have these conversations, like, and he says, well, why am I getting these? And it'll trigger like that basic memory of like, oh, if I click, I get that. And that's why I'm getting this. That's why I'm sure you both have gotten targeted ads for things that maybe you have never even searched, that you just maybe bought at the store, but you didn't buy online, and they all of a sudden pop up in your social media feeds. And you're like, how did that get there? That's part of your digital footprint. That you maybe just paused on an ad for a little bit, or you looked it up. You were in Walmart. I know this happens to me a lot. I'm in Walmart. I don't know where something is in the store. So I go to the app, I type it in. It tells me it's in aisle A11. I'm like, perfect. So I go to aisle A11, I find the thing, I buy it, I'm good. And then the next day I get a targeted ad for that thing. I'm like, wait, I didn't buy that online. How did I get that? Well, I told Walmart I was interested in that by just simply typing it in a search in their app. And now that data has been collected on me, that footprint has been collected, and it's out there for the advertisers to get a hold of and use. It's a bit more than that, though, even. I guess I was going right into the algorithm. So this metadata that they're collecting in the background creates these gigantic webs of our digital footprint to target us with stuff that we want. It's both good and bad. It's good because that's how the internet works. Like the internet, you want to find stuff on the internet that you like. And so that's great because it'll give you stuff like I've got over here. This is just a screenshot of my suggested videos on YouTube, because guess what I watch a lot on YouTube? I watch a lot of golf videos. And so all of a sudden I look over here and James Robinson golf, foreplay golf, the Masters. Like, it's no, like they're like, hey, Ben, you've watched a lot of golf videos. These are extremely popular golf videos, 140,000 views, 288,000 views, 359,000 views. I bet you would probably like these too, wouldn't you? And I'm like, yeah, I do. That's great. I haven't watched that one yet, or I haven't seen that one yet. And then next thing you know, I'm in this rabbit hole and I keep watching golf videos, and that's all they're promoting to me. So this algorithm works not just on YouTube, but it works on Facebook. It works on your Snapchat stories. It works on your Instagram reels. Certainly works on TikTok, where they track. And this is something I think you can talk to kids, young kids, like even if they're scrolling through TikTok and they pause on one video and they watch that video for longer than another video, the algorithm is tracking how much time you're engaging with that video. And if it sees that you paused on a cat video and you watched that entire cat video, and then the next video up was a dog video and you swiped up on that video right away, the algorithm has just learned that you like cat videos more than you like dog videos. And so the next thing you know, you're going to get more cat videos than you are dog videos. And it's only because you didn't like it, you didn't comment on it, you didn't do anything, you just engaged with it longer, because all of that is being tracked in the background. As a YouTube creator myself, I don't post a lot. I used to post more, but I used to make a lot of videos. I can go in and I can look, and it gives me a very detailed breakdown of my audience and how long they engage with my videos for. I get demographic information. Do I have more men or more women that are following my video, that are watching my videos? I get age demographic information. Am I getting 13 to 15-year-olds? Am I getting 18 to 20-year-olds? Am I getting these? I get all of that information in the background as a creator. And that's all based off of just somebody clicking on the video and watching. Like, they didn't engage with it. They don't have to like it. They don't have to comment it. So I think it's important for you to like educate kids on this too, is that if you are watching stuff online and you're wondering how you're getting these things, it all comes back to this algorithm. It's a big thing to kind of dive into. I find it fascinating how the internet works. But yeah, it's something to talk to kids about, certainly. Questions about the algorithm? Okay. So how about this? Sharing information online. Again, something good to talk about with kids. What's okay to share, what's not okay to share. I think this is a really important conversation to have, especially when we're dealing with very sharing apps like TikTok, certainly Snapchat, even like a WhatsApp, an Instagram. All of these apps have DM features where kids can get on and chat with each other and delete messages. They disappear, even though they're into their digital footprint, and a simple screenshot can keep that disappearing message from actually disappearing. But one of the things that we want to know about with kids, as I was researching a lot of this topic to talk to kids about, is that our brain is wired to share with others. Like, there's a reason why social media is the #1 top platform and use of the internet, is because we are wired as human beings. Our brains are wired to share information with others. And that's why we have this like immediate liking, where I put something on Facebook and I get the little bubble notification that somebody liked it. I get a dopamine hit. Like, my brain goes, yes, that was something that people liked. I hoped it was. Like, good job. Keep doing that. And we've been wired into this like sense of like those notification bubbles make us feel good. And that's because our brains are wired to share. Like, that's why teachers exist. Like, people like to share information. Like, we do this all the time. So it's important to tell kids, like, it's okay to share. Just make sure you're sharing the appropriate things. And so what is okay to share and why? So like, there are some good reasons, like, and I think this is, again, the do part of this, not the don't part, but the do part of this. What are the reasons to share? It helps you feel good. It helps you learn. It helps you connect with people, and it helps you persuade. And these I think are 4 bullet points that I put in here because I think they're important to talk to kids about, because you don't, like, again, it's the whole don't versus do conversation. And when we want to tell kids to share things, to be an active, good digital citizen, we want to tell them why. Well, why should I do that? It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Well, it makes you feel good to share things. Like, when I post something online and then I have somebody come by and they're like, hey, I heard you looked like you had a really good time on that golf trip. Like, yeah, thank you. I did, and they're like, wow, it looked great. I want to go there sometime. Like, you should, that makes me feel good, and then I learn stuff. I have used the internet to learn everything in my professional life. Like, the internet in this form did not exist when I was going through school. So to learn all this stuff, I have to learn from social media channels, from Twitter, from Facebook groups, like those types of things. Connecting with people, forming those connections. I have that. I think this is important to talk to kids about. They're lucky. They're very lucky. My dad is envious of me and my generation. And I'm 37, and he's envious because of the connection I have to my college friends and more importantly, my high school friends. He doesn't have that same connection because they're not on social media. He's on Instagram, but he's not on Facebook. He doesn't have like group text going that they've had going since they graduated. Like, my friends and I have a group text going since almost the time we graduated. So talking to kids about connecting, like, that's good. Keeps friends forever, keeps you there. And the persuasion part, I think the thing is the healthy debate, right? Like, you can help people, like, you can persuade them on things, but you want to be respectful of it. Okay. So these are all just good things to talk to kids about. Commenting positively and sharing information positively and persuading people is different than arguing or debating, right? Or debating aggressively, I should say. So good reasons to talk to kids. And then this is the other conversation to have with your children too, is when you do share stuff, is it private or is it personal? Like, that's the big thing to have this conversation. Like, what are the things we can share and what are the things we shouldn't share? And we go from private information and personal information are 2 different things. So when we talk about private information, this is the stuff like I almost blew when I was asking the questions earlier, but like information about you that can be used to identify you because it's unique to you, your full name, your address, certainly like social security numbers, things like that. But that's the type of thing we can work on with students and kids and say, what are these identifiers? In Illinois, we have a law called the SOPA law, the Student Online Privacy Protection Act. And we call this PII, personally identifiable information. So if a student can be identified, it falls under PII, and you have to have an agreement with the company in order to use their platform. So when we talk to kids, it's like, if I put this online, can you identify it, me, from that thing? So when we talk about personal information, stuff to share that we can share, it's things that cannot be used to identify you because it is also true for many other people. And so I go to things like hair color or city you live in, and I say, what's your birthday? You can say, well, I was born in June. That's fine. You can say that. But if you say, my birthday is June 27th, 2014, it's like, okay, now we just got to the identifiable part of that. Like, there's a lot of other people born on that day, but also you went another step further, right? But if you say like, oh, I have brown hair, that's fine. Lots of people have brown hair, so you can still share personal information. You just shouldn't share private information. And so there's fun games you can play, maybe like make up a list of personal versus private, talk to your kids about that. Hey, these are things that I know that I can identify you as. These are things that are personal information, and that type of stuff. Like, so just a conversation to have with your kids. All right. It's a lot so far. Okay. So when we get into actual like monitoring, okay, this is a spot where we wanted to share a couple of tips. I know it was device agnostic tonight. I am personally an Apple guy, so I lean more towards the iOS side of things versus the Android operating system. I have not had an Android phone for 13 years. So I don't know the ins and outs. I did research it prior to, and when I talk to people that do have Android phones, a lot of the same systems exist inside of the Android phone as the Apple devices do. So there are some things that I want to go over on ways. I'm going to use my iPhone as the demonstration piece for this because that's what I have, and I don't have an Android operating system. But you can see I kind of put them back to back here. Like, there are things over in the Apple world that are also in the Android world. And so there's just a few things. I'm going to spend, looking at the time, about 5 minutes probably doing this. So let me go ahead and stop this presentation here, and I'm going to mirror my iPhone screen for you guys. Can you guys see that okay? I can't see you anymore, so I'd have to verbally make sure you guys can see that.
We cannot see your phone.
Can't see my phone, shoot.
But it might be my view. Hold on. So I can do gallery. No, I just see your screen, your computer screen, us, and you.
Let me try one more thing. Generally, this works. If not, I will just talk about said things and instead of the demo. See, I don't know why that's being silly tonight. Oh, I think I know why. Hang on. Let me change my share settings.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Good. Okay. Yep. I had shared the wrong window. So, okay. So when we're talking about iPhones, again, this stuff exists in Android phones as well. It all goes into settings. And then the big thing here, when we go into this, where Apple has put a lot of these permissions and these controls is in the screen time area here. Okay. So for screen time, we get a lot of really interesting information here. I think this is important when you're talking to your kids for you to kind of check in on their kids too, on what their screen time looks like, what apps they're using. You can kind of track what they're looking at, how long they're spending on these things. But there's just a few things in here that I find to be very interesting. Like, they do allow you to schedule downtime. where you can essentially put on only certain apps and things. It's like putting on a do not disturb, but the phone is like set down. Like you're only allowed to get into certain applications. You can also, I think this is an important one too, when we talk about kids. I don't have anything set up because it's me, but you can set up app limits on here. And what this allows you to do is go in, find different apps or websites. Like that's another thing too, is like you can look at apps and even down at the bottom here, certain websites, and you can control how long you're able to go into those certain applications. So like I can look at if I wanted to put a limit on my Instagram, I can then put a limit on how long I'm able to engage with that app. So if I only want to do it for let's say an hour every day, I add that limit. Now, here's the thing with this. This is all well and good, right up until it's a lot like setting an alarm. When you set an alarm, you can hit snooze. And when you set these app limits, it'll come up and it'll snooze. And the kids can just keep hitting snooze, snooze, snooze. I would say the benefit to this though is that it is free. So that's good. And also like they have to consciously understand that they've been on it for that long, right? So it is important to look at these, and you can set these app limits and these screen time limits up here. You can also do this where if you have some, your kid is experiencing something where somebody's being mean to them, or another friend or something is contacting them too much, you can also go in and limit communication. So like who is able to get a hold of them at some point. So like, my friend Amy is calling me at all times of night. Like I don't want her to call me anymore, but I don't want to block her. Like, she's keeping me up. It's like, well, you can allow communication with certain individuals through this at certain times of the day. So Apple's put a lot of thought into limiting, or how you can control your interactions with this. And then this, the other thing too, is you can also set up parental guards in here with like blocking privacy restrictions and putting pins on this. So kids can't get in and change some of these things, so you can see like we can go in here, we can allow content and privacy restrictions. So when my son does get a little older, starts exploring the internet into maybe corners that I don't want him to, I can go in and I can restrict apps. I can restrict certain content. If I turn this on and go into content restrictions here, you can see I can go in and change what types of movies, books, what kind of web content he's allowed to see on his phone, or his iPad, so we can really go in and you can change a lot of these settings. It's like a web filter, but it's on the phone, which I think is pretty great. The other one down here, privacy. This is a big one too, like the share my location option. This is one where, in certain applications or somebody's texting, a kid, they can be like, hey, where are you at? Share your location. And kids can just go into Google Maps or they can go into Apple Maps and hit share my location, drop their PIN, and that person knows exactly where they're at. Well, you can go in as a parent and not allow that to happen inside of here. So there's some really good stuff. And then this is where you allow the changes down at the bottom. So like allowing kids to change their passcode, to change their account. You can limit a lot of these things in here and set up these parental controls that are really, really important, to do. And there's our screen time passcode setup. So you can set that all up so that way your kids aren't able to go in and achieve, you spend all that time changing their settings and then they go back in and change them right back. And then the other thing too, if your kids don't have an iTunes account or an Apple ID, this share across devices, I think is a super important function to know exists. You're going to want to, if they're on your Apple ID, like my son has an iPad, but it's on my Apple ID, it's not on his name. I would go in and set these restrictions up, but I'm going to slide this off because I don't want those restrictions on me. Like, I don't want to limit my YouTube, like viewing and stuff like that. So, if you slide that off, that's going to only allow that particular device to be on those settings. So I think that's really an important thing. The last thing here, going back up to the top, is this activity. I think this is a good thing for you to check in with your kids every once in a while, is to maybe grab their device, say, hey, I just want to take a look around a little bit. And when you go into see all activity, I don't know why mine's not populating right now. It's almost good. You guys don't see how long I'm on Instagram because you can see it's just spinning for some unknown reason there. Maybe it's because I'm mirroring it. But what that'll do is that will show you how long they've been on every single app. That'll also show you like how many notifications they've got. I'm really kind of bummed it's not reporting. I don't know. It's very strange because I definitely have that turned on. It'll show you like, oh, they had 130 notifications yesterday. And it's like, well, when can we maybe look at what app was notifying them the most? And then go in to our notifications back in our normal settings, find that app, like we'll say Snapchat, and then just turn notifications off. Like, okay, we're just not going to have notifications for that. Like I did that for Instagram. Like I don't need those notifications coming in. So I went into Instagram, I turned those notifications off. I only have certain notifications. I do have some notifications on, but I only have certain notifications on for like messages, I think, and that's it. So there are ways we can help our kids be healthier and safer online by setting up these very basic, but really important, things inside of our screen time app here. Apple's really good at this. One of the reasons why is that they were sued a couple of years ago for promoting, or the lawsuit alleged that they were promoting kids to be on their phones too much. And so it was pretty apparent that right after they settled that lawsuit, they came out with a new iOS update that had all of these features in it. So funny how that works. Now, Android does have a lot of these same features and functions. They're in the digital wellness and well-being and parental controls section of the Android operating system, where they have the content restrictions and things like that. But what Android actually does, and you can get this for iOS as well, they have an app called Google Family Link, which is fairly highly regarded. And when I was doing some research on it, people really seem to like it. And it's free. And it allows you as a parent to control and set up different filters and functions and monitor of your devices for your kids. So any questions at all? All right. So I crowdsourced some of these because again, I've only got a 6-year-old, so I haven't quite put him on to some of this stuff, but I asked the parents that I work with in my organization, what were some of the apps that they used? And then I also went to, the internet and found some good ones too. And then they're about the same. So this Questio, I don't know exactly how to say it. Questodio, I think. This Questodio I found to be the one that was the highest rated. It's about $55 a year from what I've gathered, but it does a lot of stuff. And I think it's really cool what it does and what it can help you with as a parent to understand what your kids are doing. So it does a lot of the stuff that you can do normally on an iPhone, like I just showed you. But the other thing that it does is it does do filter contenting. It does monitor activity. You just get it on your device. So that way you can see all the stuff that your son or daughter's doing without them, without you invading their phone. The other thing that it allows is it does have family location on it too. So you can track like where that phone's at to help understand where, your son or daughter is at. And then it will track calls and text messages too. So if you think that, your son or daughter is texting somebody too much, it'll tell you what number they're texting a bunch. I don't know that it will show you what they're texting, but at least lets you know like, hey, like they've been calling this number a bunch. They've been texting this number a bunch. And then it also has alerts on it, which I think is really interesting because what it'll do is when we do look at the alerts feature down here, this is something that I know a lot of schools use, that it does give you real-time alerts when they try to access things, or even sometimes doing like different content that they're getting into that's searching for these different keywords. So like, they search for suicide or they search for, different vulgar words, like it'll come up and it'll flag that and let you know, which is really helpful because you don't want something like that to go unnoticed. So this is one that I had like multiple parents that were in my organization say they use this one. They really like it, that it was really good. The other one is called Bark. So this is the other one I can personally speak to that I know schools use this. This one it's an algorithm. So much same way that YouTube spits out a lot of information to us on and understands what we like and what we don't like. What this does, Bark allows us to go in and it actually understands what, so like you can see again, same stuff that you were doing with the other program, but the other thing that it does is it has monitoring, where if they're using some of those keywords, even in like text messages and searches, it has an algorithm it spits it through to see that like, oh, they shouldn't be searching for that. And you can set that up to be notified. So if it is a negative connotation to something, it'll send a ding to you. Schools use this a lot to find things for bullying. So there are keywords that are in the algorithm that spit out for hateful words. And if they suspect a student is being bullied or has typed in stuff about being bullied, the counselor will get a notification, or the principal will get a notification. And you can do a lot of that same thing here with Bark, but for the personal side of things, for not just the school side of things, so it's for the parent side. This one,
How do they get access to someone's phone?
so it's an app that you have to put on your kid's phone.
Okay.
And then it's kind of the same thing with the PII conversation about letting people track. You have to be aware of what data you're giving over to companies, right? So it essentially plugs into the background of your phone, and then it gets access. You allow it access, and then it just monitors. So it is just running in the background, scanning for that information, and has kind of this third-party backdoor into your internet world.
So how do teachers, they would put it on a kid who's being bullied?
Yeah, so in the education system, it's a Chrome extension on Chromebooks. And so an IT department will push it out as a Chrome extension, and the kids have no choice but to have it on there. And then it's a content scanner. And if it's a keystroke scanner, like it's amazing what programs are out there that'll do that. Like if you type in something, it just knows, and it runs that in the background. There's even desktop applications, at least for the school side. I don't know if it's available on the consumer side to parents, but they can install it as a desktop application on a Windows machine or an Apple machine. And a kid could open up like a Microsoft Word document, not on Chrome, and type in something, and it would still pick it up and send off the notification to the guidance counselor, assuming they were online. Obviously, they have to be connected to the internet. But if they're not connected to the internet, as soon as they would connect to the internet, boom, it sends it off. Yeah. It's a very good tool. We have a lot of schools that use it, and I believe there's a free. So if you do want to talk about this to schools in your area, like there is I'm 95% sure Bark has a free program for schools to get into. Like it's at least like a free level and tier of it. And then you can obviously, like anything, you can scale up to more paid features. But this is one that I know is very popular with schools. So that's a good question. Yeah. How does it even work? and that's the part with the kind of the real digital nerdy stuff that sometimes I don't really even know how it works, because it's another level of nerd that I have not achieved yet. I'm pretty nerdy. I'm not that nerdy yet though. This was another one that I found that was highly rated. I can't speak to it. I don't know anybody that's used it, but it was called Casper Sky Safe for Kids. It was a little bit cheaper, I believe, than the other ones. But again, it essentially did the same thing as the other ones did. You can see it's about half the price of that Questio one was, but I think any good content monitoring is a good thing to have for your kids. So, all right. Well, we have like a couple of minutes left, and we did start late, so I will go. I'm happy to go to 6:05 if you guys are cool with that, because I do want to talk to you a little bit about media literacy. You good for another 5 minutes? Cool. And this is one I think really important to talk to kids about. Even my wife, just today, like she said something. She's like, she says, she goes, I didn't know. She's like, Josie, or I don't even know what the girl's name was. She's like, at work, she's a nurse. She said that President Biden got impeached today. She's like, I'm not seeing it anywhere. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think he did. Like, I'm pretty sure he didn't. She's like, well, must have been like fake then. She's like, but it was like a broadcast. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's being impeached. I'm like, it's news to me because it's not being reported anywhere. So I don't know where she got that from or whatever, but that's like part of the media literacy thing of like making sure that what you're reading, you question everything, you make sure it's from a legit source. What is the legit source? How do you get this? Where do you go to? And I think when we talk about this with kids, like just explain to them what media even is And I think it's a good basic breakdown of media now is not just the news. Like, it's not just Fox, it's not just CNN, it's not just MSNBC, it's not just, you know, the nightly news on TV. It's any platform that gets information to large groups of people, and people ingest that information. So it's Twitter, it's websites, it's essentially the entire internet, YouTube, all that stuff. And we get it in all sorts of forms. So even though it's a TikTok, that's still media. That's still making sure we want to be media literate. We want to make sure that we have these tips. So these are tips that I talk to kids about. These are tips I talk to teachers about. I talk to other adults about. I had to have this conversation with my mom the other day. This was a couple of weeks ago now. I needed to go back in my text messages and take a screenshot of it, because she sent me a link to an article that, so we're big Disney fans in this family. We go down to Disney a lot. And my mom is particularly unhappy with the governor of Florida and his continued attacks on Disney World. I don't think she would care about politics at all, except she does not like the fact that he is going after Disney. So she sends me this article that says Governor DeSantis has called in the National Guard to screen cars before they enter Disney World. And the article had the link, and the preview picture of the link had the worst Photoshop of a National Guard truck in front of the Disney World arch that I have ever seen in my entire life. And her text to me says, "What will that blank DeSantis do next?" And she's like, and then the follow with, "Can you believe he's doing this?" Which is my first thing back to her. I was like, "No, Mom, I do not believe that, because I don't think he can legally call in the National Guard against a private entity and screen them from going into their property." And first thing I did, I went to Google, I typed it in, and the only article that came up that was claiming this was the same one that she sent to me. There was not a single other news site reporting this. It was very clearly not real. And I sent her back, I'm like, "Mom, that's not real." And she's like, "Good, I hope not." It's like, oh my God. Like, you were telling me when I was 7 not to believe everything I was reading on the internet. And now here you are at 66, and I'm telling you, don't believe everything you read on the internet. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. So I think it's important to talk to kids. Like, you want to question what you see online, but you don't want to like question it to the point where you disbelieve everything. I think that's a problem that we fell into, especially during COVID, was we just stopped believing everything. And it was like, well, no, we're not going to believe it because it came from Dr. Fauci. We don't trust him. Or no, we're not going to believe it because it came from the right. And so we don't trust the right. So now we're just questioning everything. It's like, always I think I just err on the side of caution, like have a sense of skepticism about everything, because every site on the internet has a bias. And this is where we talk to kids about this, where the reason they put those articles out is because they want you to click on them. Like, they want you to engage with them. They maybe don't even want you to click on them, but they want you to share them, like my mom did. She didn't even read the article. She just copied the link and sent it to me. And that started the conversation. And that's what these people are trying to do. So always have an air of skepticism when you're reading things online, know where it comes from, and think critically to form your own opinions. Like, don't just trust like one site, find it from another site, and I think that's really important. Like, talk to different people, talk to other websites, or look at other websites, and balance your media use. One of the things that we see is that kids find the same YouTube channels to watch all the time, and then they start to form those same opinions. And that can be a bit frightening, like, because then they're getting indoctrinated into something maybe that could be really bad. If you're interested, there is a podcast series called The Rabbit Hole on the New York Times. Did this whole podcast series on it, where they followed the journey of a teenage boy who fell into depression and then was radicalized into white supremacy because of YouTube. And he journeyed down a rabbit hole and found a father figure that was preaching about self-help. And next thing you know, he's watching video after video after video, and he radicalized him into a white supremacist. It's really kind of scary, but that's the thing to talk to kids about too. Like, maybe don't show them that when they're, 11, 10, 12, whatever, but like, differentiate your sources, find new things, read all things, listen to stuff. Like, when I was teaching government, it was very clear to me which families watched Fox and which families watched MSNBC, because I would just say one thing And then one side of the class had this opinion and the other side of the class had this opinion. Could pretty quickly figure it out where they were not watching other stuff. And so, which made it very difficult as a government teacher to have conversation. But that's why I was glad I was done teaching government after the 2012 election and didn't have to deal with anyone after that. That was okay with me. So anywho, there's a whole set of cybersecurity stuff, and I can actually send Kelsey the link to these slides, and you guys can have them here, because there's a little bit more about being safe online. One of the things that I like to talk about with kids, and I talk about it with adults too, is password security. One of the things here is making sure, like, there's something here. Oh, I don't have it in here. Shoot, I thought I had the quote. There's a great quote to talk to kids about. Okay. I can't remember who it was from, but he said, passwords are like underwear. Don't share them, change them frequently. And it was like, yeah, passwords are like underwear. Don't share them and change them frequently. Like, that's pretty relatable. Like, don't use the same thing all the time. Don't wear the same dirty underwear all the time. Like, change it and don't share it with people. Here's my advice to you guys. Even just the two of you that are here tonight. If you do one thing after you come away from this hour that we've been together, change your passwords. You don't have to get crazy with it. My advice, I did a boot camp in cybersecurity at a conference back in January. I actually was able to hack from a Linux machine, virtual machine, into an old Windows machine. As a part of that, they gave us access to a password cracker program that anybody can get. You have to go like into the depths of the dark web to get it, but you can get it. We created 5 user accounts. We created 5 different passwords for those user accounts. The first password we used was only a letter with no uppercase letter, it was only lowercase letters. The next one had 1 uppercase letter. The third one had numbers and an uppercase letter. The fourth one had one symbol. The fifth one had 2 symbols. The first 3 passwords, when we ran them through the password cracker, were cracked in under 5 seconds. The machine guessed it. Cracked the passwords right away. The fourth one that had 1 symbol, we never got, but the guy said it would take about 2 years and then the machine would eventually guess it. The one that had 2 symbols in it, he said it would take almost a millennia for that machine to crack that password. So if you go away from here, my simple piece of advice is, if you have a password that has an A in it, use the @ symbol. If you have a password that has an I in it, use an exclamation mark in place of the I. If you have a password that has an S in it, use a $, and preferably use multiple of those. So that way you're not like doing something out of the ordinary, but a person who is cracking your password is not sitting there being like, let's see. And then they start typing. They're putting it through a program that is using all the variables that they can get to try and crack that password. So if we just put 2 symbols in there, we make ourselves infinitely safer with our passwords. So yeah, so that's one that I think is a really easy win out of this. Hopefully there's lots of other easy wins that you come out of this with today. But yeah, that's an hour. Go ahead. Yeah.
What about saving your passwords in Google?
Yeah. So that's where we want to, be responsible more with our machine. Okay. So like our computer, our iPads, our iPhones, and who we let touch them physically. Right. So if I was to get in and I learned, one of the things we want to do is, like, when I leave my computer, if I'm at work, even though I trust everybody in my office, I put it to sleep and it requires a password to get back into it. If I leave my phone, I'd never leave my phone. Like, I always bring my phone with me, and I have a passcode on it, and I have Face ID on it. Like, because this thing it's got all the dirt on me. Like, it knows every password. It knows all my accounts are on here. Like, it's really like, this is everything. So like, I have a passcode on it. That's, I think, saving your passwords in Chrome is fine. Like, as long as you just always know where your device is and you have another password on your device too, right? So it's very much being conscious of who touches your computer, where it's at, being safe with that. Because yeah, if I leave my computer open and I just walk away, my bank account passwords are saved on it. So somebody can just come up, click on it, boom, boom, click on it, transfer, whatever, off it goes. Not great, right? That's really bad. So you just got to be aware, like make sure you're safe with, you know, who's got access to your device. And when you log into another person's device to use that, you delete all of your information away from it. So my advice to you on that too, is if I have to use somebody else's machine, you know, like I have to do that frequently for my job. Like, oh, hey, I've got a Google Doc. Let me share that with you really quick. And I go, well, let me log into your computer. So I'll go up and I'll create a new incognito window in Chrome. And then that means if I go to YouTube, I'm not logged in. If I go to Google Drive, I have to log in. And then when I close out this incognito window, whoever opens it back up, it just all that's wiped away. So like, yeah. So like if you use somebody else's machine, use an incognito window. If you
Show
have
how
to,
you open that again?
yeah. So in Chrome, you go up to the 3 dots on the right-hand side, and then you say new incognito window. If you're in Safari, it's called private browsing. So you can go in and do a private browser. I'm not sure what it's called in Firefox. I haven't used Firefox in a very long time, but they have something similar, like an incognito window or a safe window or something like that. But that's a big one. Like, you know, is making sure if you do log into somebody's device, like use an incognito window, or if you have to. So like, I'll give you an example. Tomorrow for work, I'm presenting at a community college. Sometimes my MacBook connects appropriately to the projector there, and sometimes it does not. So then I might have to use their PC. So I'll log into my Chrome account. But what I'll do is, after I'm done, I'll click on the profile icon up here that I'm signed into, go to settings, and then delete my profile. And as soon as I do that, all my stuff's gone off that machine. So then nobody can get back into it.